Hello and welcome to another Extra Flange with Intoxicus Gaming. It's the Tuesday after the announcement of Reggie Fils-Aime joining GameStop's board to presumably help try and rescue and save them, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But before we flange on into that, just a quick little housekeeping note. If you're wondering where the daily flange is, I'm putting a hiatus on that temporarily. I want to focus more on other content and just rethink how I'm doing a lot of things. So I do intend to eventually return to the Daily Flange or something like it, but for the time being, I'm going to focus more on other content that's not been getting as much attention and focus as it needs. A lot of that stuff's way too far behind, so just letting you guys know quick, and back to the actual topic. So Reggie Fils-Aime has joined the GameStop board, and this is super interesting, and there's a whole lot to talk about. But also one little quick thing before we actually talk about that, because I'm in Canada and I know I'm going to have Canadian viewers, just a quick thing we got to cover. GameStop does include EB Games and Electronics Boutique. They're all under the same umbrella, more or less. There's more nuance and detail to how exactly that works out business-wise and all that. But when I talk GameStop, I'm talking collectively everything GameStop, Flanges, EB Games, Electronics Boutique, all that stuff. Just want to make that clear, just so no one's like, oh, I'm in Canada, this doesn't really matter, we have EB Games. Basically, EB Games is the Canadian version of GameStop. Just want to make sure no one gets confused about like regional, locational differences. And we're going to actually start talking about the topic now that we have that stuff out of the way with the tweet Reggie Fils-Aime dropped. We'll read it, of course. The gaming industry needs a healthy and vibrant... Holy fuck. Read it if I can speak properly. Let's try that again. The gaming industry needs a healthy and vibrant at GameStop. I look forward to being a part of GameStop Corp board and helping to make this happen. And then he's got a link to their press release, Steely. So not too much there other than the industry needs a healthy and vibrant GameStop. I would generally agree with that. Like if GameStop/EB Games goes away, that's a massive hole to fill. And there is like Amazon and Best Buy and Walmart, but they're kind of corporate. None of them focus on just games, and they have a lot of their own issues, especially with shipping pre-orders and mediocre packaging and other issues, but they can fill the gap. But then there's also smaller local shops which exist more and more. The local one in my town is Video Game Trader. I believe it's kind of a franchise type deal across Canada. I could be misremembering on that, but it is kind of like a franchise type deal. There's like my friend who runs the local Video Game Trader here in Calgary. He's got 3 locations here in Calgary, and yeah, so he does quite well for himself, and there's a lot he does that GameStop can't really compete with or would have trouble competing with, and that's something we'll talk about more about later. But for what GameStop does, that would be a hard gap to fill because, like I say, kind of touching on, the smaller local shops like Video Game Trader, they don't have the hookups to get like the big retail pre-orders and stuff. So they could fill in partly, but there'd be kind of an issue, and maybe GameStop leaving would make it easier to access that stuff. So it's when it comes to filling in the gap, I think it would be a big problem, at least initially, if we lost GameStop/EB Games. So I would agree with his statement. The gaming industry does need a healthy and vibrant GameStop/EB Games, and not just for the shop to exist or something like it, but for it to be healthy and vibrant and to be something people talk well of and want to go to. Which, for my friend who runs Video Game Trader, I'm sure he would. I guess the best way to put it is he wouldn't be disappointed if GameStop disappeared, because he and other people like him would be ready to do their best to fill in that gap. But there's things that would get in the way of that. But we'll get deeper into that later. I just want to touch on that because it's Reggie's direct input, or at least as much as a single sentence can tell us like that. It's just some things to think about. So here's the press release from GameStop, or news release as they call it. So there's two other members, and they talk about a whole bunch of other stuff shifting up. I'm not too familiar with the other two people. They talk about their previous history, and they've got lots of relevant experience. And hopefully they can help out too, just because of their previous experience does look good with the kind of stuff they've done, the other two guys. And then we all know what Reggie's done, at least gaming wise. Before gaming, it's really interesting. He's flanged up a lot of stuff outside of gaming too. And I think more than anyone, it's Reggie that's really going to have the biggest influence and pull, because he's done the gaming direct related stuff, where he knows more when it comes to gaming specifically, what we need, what we want, what works, what doesn't work. And he's not perfect. He doesn't have all the answers, of course, but he's, out of anyone that would be available to fill this role for GameStop, he's probably the best, hands down, out of the available people they could hire. What's interesting too, though, is they talk about how a lot of their old members are leaving. Their new median, which means like middle, pretty much. So it's like mean, median, and average. Average is obvious. Median is like the middle number. So if you have a set of numbers, it's literally the one in the middle. So their median for tenure on the board is now 1 year. So now they've got basically it's a roundabout way of how they said it, that they've got a new fresh board that's not so entrenched in their old stuff. And we'll talk about that old entrenched stuff that's definitely problematic for GameStop. And this actually makes me kind of hopeful that GameStop can maybe get its shit together. And the problem, at least part of the problem, I think, is they're kind of entrenched and stuck in some old ways of doing things that just don't work and make people not want to go to GameStop, because it just creates a bad experience. So we'll just touch on the kind of history that probably prompted this. We're not going to go deep into these articles, just touching on them. So they had revenues crashing, closing stores, laying off employees and managers and all that kind of stuff to try and recover, even though I think those kind of strategies aren't effective. Like, you don't change anything that matters by laying people off and not hiring replacements that can do better, because I would assume you would lay people off so you can get new people that would do things better than the previous people that got laid off, instead of just getting rid of people to try and make your numbers look better, or just cut expenses, which is kind of a death knell. It often doesn't really actually solve anything. And so when companies do this kind of stuff, it's just like, ooh, this is a bad sign, and many people see that. So the district managers getting laid off, now that might not be so bad. And this is probably a decent time to touch on entrenched stuff and like entrenched corporate cultures. There's lots of videos where there's been people talking about how crappy and ridiculous it can be to work at GameStop, and all the pressure to get numbers and push things on customers and all that. All that stuff creates a crappy customer experience. And then you get all these former employees who make videos about it, and then people watch these videos and they're like, oh, wow, so that's what's behind the crappy customer experience, and the reason people don't really want to go there unless they have to. And I do want to give credit too. There are individual stores with individual employees who do make it a better experience and are better about the things they have to push, and are less aggressive about it and more just do it because they have to, and are actually like chill and cool. Like the closest EB Games to me, the people working there are great. They're great people. They do their best, and there's definitely been times where they've been restricted by the requirements of the corporate structure and that kind of thing, where they've just been like, sorry dude, we can't help you just because we're limited. We would like to if we could, but we just can't because we don't want to get fired. And I totally respect that. And that's not what they said directly, but that's the kind of vibe you get. And sometimes it's not about what they say directly, and it's about the little things about how they go about things, and you kind of pick up like the vibe of how things are happening, which is something I've had to learn how to do being on the autism spectrum. But anyways, like the vibe I get, at least from my local stores, like, they do the things they have to, and they want to try and be cool about it, but they'd rather be doing things in a way that just makes more sense and actually is better business and a better customer experience. But they have to do certain things to keep their jobs. Anyways, the whole point I'm getting at is you can get these corporate structures where you get middle upper management that get entrenched in these things, they get stuck on them, and then it gets passed down to the low level employees. So now they're stuck doing these things that they don't want to do, like upselling and pushing things on customers and pre-order this, pre-order that, and all that kind of stuff that customers don't really like. And that gets reinforced by a corporate culture where this is like, oh, this is what we do, we got to get our numbers, this and that, and numbers. It's especially when it gets big about numbers. And numbers are good, numbers are great, they can tell you a lot, there's nothing wrong with them. But when companies get too over attached like GameStop has, it becomes problematic. And speaking of numbers, let's look at their stock and how that's changed. So this is the one day gone back up after a noonish dip, which is interesting because sometimes you'll have people just sell off and then they see other people selling, so you get these like dips where people are selling because they think they hit a high point where it's a good time to sell, and then you get other times where the low points are just because they're doing bad. So this is the 5-day, and you can clearly see a sudden upswing after a massive dip, just in the general trend after the Reggie announcement too. Like looking at the 1 month is just like, whoa, that was definitely a bad one. And then the 6 months, whoa, like they're doing bad before, but this is like real bad. Year to date, like you can see how bad it is. So numbers can be useful, like I was saying, but when you get over attached to them, it can become problematic. Okay, yeah. Whoa, that dip is just disastrous. They weren't even that bad before. Wow. But yeah, it's pretty clear they need to do something huge fast to change things, or they're just not going to last. And it's their own damn fault for just like, wow, not even like, wow. Yeah, it's just wow. How much they've come down in 5 years is staggering. Wow. Oh, that's funny that they're at 420 right now. Anyways, so just on the note of talking about numbers, they can be great, they can be useful, but don't get over attached to them either. And that's, as we touch on this article, some of the problems with GameStop. We're not going to go too deep into these, they're more just referential, just to kind of have something more factual to back up what I'm saying, just so I'm not like talking shit with gameplay footage in the background. And actually have something substantial to back up what I'm saying. But yeah, so this basically retouches on some of the stuff I mentioned. Like the specific part I want to find is where he talks about where they spent like oh yeah, here it is. They spent like 5 minutes upselling them. I mean, I'm sure that's a bit of hyperbole. But it's the idea of when you get this like rehearsed long speech where it's like, oh, push this, pre-order that, pre-order this, oh, do you want this, do you want that, disc protection. It's like, oh, just fuck off already. I just want to buy a game. And that's the thing, they have to do this stuff because of this corporate management perspective of, oh, we got to get our numbers up. If they don't push these things, we won't get our numbers up. Well, if you push these things, your numbers will drop because customers don't show up because they get fucking sick and tired of that shit. So it's just, it kind of bothers me because it seems so obvious from my kind of perspective. And it's like, how are the people running this stuff so disconnected? Which is actually one of the bigger reasons I think Reggie specifically is a very good addition to the board, because he's not that disconnected. There's definitely some things Nintendo still did where it's like, wow, Nintendo's disconnected. but we have to remember too, he's Reggie, when he is in charge of Nintendo of America, he's still beholden to Nintendo of Japan. So he could not want to do things where Nintendo of Japan's like, this is how we're doing it. And for all we know, Reggie was like, oh, that's probably not a good idea. And he just had to do it anyways, because that's how these things work sometimes. And so Reggie personally, as a person, seems very connected, very with things. Like all the like bits and hilarious things he's done are just so great, and show like how with it and connected he is, especially for being what, 58 I think it was. Yeah, but he's kind of an older dude, and a lot of people more in his age range do tend to be a bit more disconnected than they could be, especially in this age of information where if you want to be connected, it's very easy to get connected if you try to. And yeah, so yeah, it's yeah, with stuff like this needs to end. This is something Reggie really needs to step in and be like, all this crap with the 5 minute rehearsed speech. Again, 5 minutes is probably hyperbole, but you get the idea. Like, I'm sure when it comes to what Reggie is specifically going to do and how he's going to try and fix things, I'm sure this is high on the list, because I guarantee if you're to poll customers, they'd be like, and ask them, would you come would you come to GameStop more if we cut that stuff off? Holy fuck, can't speak again. Let's try that again. If GameStop polled customers and basically asked in some way, if we cut out all this upselling crap, would you show up more? The answer would probably be yes. And that's the thing. You have to make customers want to come because they like going there. Like, I don't show up at Video Game Trader because of medical issues and traveling being difficult, but I like going there because, I can kind of like hang out, I can kind of chat with the people there, I can just like browse and chill and check out cool stuff and ask questions, and the staff are knowledgeable and they know what they're talking about, so you can actually have discussions with them about like all sorts of stuff. Not to say the staff at EB Games and GameStop aren't. It's just, it's a different kind of vibe you get, where it's at GameStop, I feel a little bit more anxious about trying to talk to them and have conversations, because I feel like we're going to run into this thing where it's like they're kind of beholden to GameStop and the corporate things GameStop requires of them. So it kind of limits what kind of conversations you can have and how open they can be, because they kind of have to not get in trouble with their bosses, GameStop. And so, I just, when with the locally owned store like VGT, I just feel so much more comfortable just having conversations, because I don't have to worry about, are they going to trip over something corporate and be like, kind of dance around a subject, or be afraid to talk about it, or that kind of stuff. So, and it's nothing against the employees working there. I mean, they're just doing their best to do their job and all that. And again, like my closest local EB, the people there, they've all been great. They're definitely good people trying to do their best. And it's not their fault. They're restricted by the corporate structure and requirements and all of that. And that's the kind of stuff I'm hoping Reggie might help loosen up and change, because that'd be very, very beneficial to GameStop to be able to have those conversations and just chat with employees and not worry about, am I going to kind of get into something weird and awkward because they're worried about commenting honestly, because they're worried if it gets up to management somehow, they might get in trouble or something. And it's a very valid concern, because, and when I say management, I mean like upper management, not like in-store management. So, if it, let's say we have a conversation, I tweet about it, GameStop upper corporate management gets wind of it, then they're like, we don't like that. What store was that? Like, that kind of stuff is real. It's not common, but it's real, and it's a real fear. And especially in these kind of economic times, people really don't want to lose a job if they can avoid it, because it's getting harder and harder to find a job, just in general, like kind of everywhere's. So yeah, I definitely feel like just loosening a lot of that up would be of huge benefit. And they talk about in this article issues with their used game stuff, where they don't even have systems to test on site or anything like that. So, they're kind of killing their own used game market by just being crappy at it. And then you have other practices like they will open up new games and then like instead of getting a sealed brand new game, they've opened it so they can take the cartridges out, supposedly to prevent theft. Excuse me. And so your new game isn't really new and sealed. It's new as in never played, but it's not really new because it's been freaking opened. I've only been hit by that once, I think, and it was something where it didn't really bother me so much. It was more acceptable because I forget what it was specifically. There was once they got me on that. I was just like, it's just not worth making a deal out of it this time. But I've been fairly lucky, I think, mostly because I mostly only do pre-orders at GameStop, and I don't, or EB Games, sorry, and I don't generally buy a lot that's not pre-orders I can only get there, or limited pre-orders I can't get at VGT. I definitely prefer VGT any chance I can, but it's getting over there is kind of difficult sometimes. So yeah, stuff like that works against him, and Reggie definitely needs to step in and be like, "This needs to stop. It's working against you," and that kind of stuff is a good segue into the selling classic games and hardware. Spawnwave, great channel, love his stuff, but he's done this thing where he's ordered to use stuff from GameStop. EB Games isn't doing this yet. I'm sure they will eventually, and I think what they're doing is like kind of testing it in GameStop in USA before bringing it to EB Games, because, and I believe that would be because, please correct me in the comments if I'm making a mistake on this or just incorrect or whatever, but I'm pretty sure it's because EB Games in Canada and Australia generally is doing better than GameStop in America. So if that presumption is correct, which should be fact checked better, my apologies, that would tell me they're afraid of disrupting whatever they're doing in with EB Games in Canada and Australia that's working for them, that's not working for GameStop in USA. So it's like they don't want to fuck with something that's working good, but it's not working good in USA with GameStop, so that's where they're doing all this experimental new stuff, and then if it works out, they'll probably bring it to EB Games in Canada and Australia. But just I can't even do this in Canada. What Spawnwave's doing, I couldn't because they're not doing that in Canada. So this just, because as much as I did say they're all under the same umbrella, they definitely do things differently in each country to various degrees. And anyways, I kind of got off track of the segue I was going for, but the point of what we're talking about now is with the quirky, weird, idiosyncratic stuff they do with just regular used games, it seems kind of iffy how well retro classic used games and consoles will work. Like with what Spawnwave's bought and shown, it's not been terrible. It's actually been pretty decent. Like he's not been like really outright ripped off on anything, but there are problems. Like they don't really state condition very well or clearly. They don't tell you if it's, complete in box, manual, with or without manual, in box. So, you buy it, you're kind of guessing what condition it's in based on price, and you don't really know exactly what you're getting. And like the console hardware, everything Spawnwave's got has been mostly good. I think he might have got one thing that didn't work console hardware wise or had an issue. I might be misremembering there, but I think he only got one thing that had a serious issue console hardware wise. But just in general, like they need to step it up if they're going to compete with entities like Video Game Trader, who can just do this stuff better because they don't have all this corporate nonsense to deal with, and they can just do what needs to be done without having to put it, pass it through a board of directors and all that stuff. So that's one of the ways Video Game Trader and the smaller local kind of shops are going to have a huge advantage, because when they have issues or see something they can improve on, they can just do it. They don't have to take 3 months to figure out which way they want to wipe their butt, because corporate bureaucracy and board of directors and all that kind of stuff. They can be like, oh, front to back makes more sense, if you get what I'm saying. And yeah, anyways, I don't want to get too in detail there. But I think you get where I'm going with that. Excuse me while I sip tea to wet my throat so I can continue talking. And yeah, it's also the stopping fakes. That's going to be a tricky one because there can be a lot of education required to spot a fake. There's some pretty decent fakes out there, and like if you don't know what you're looking for, you can easily get scammed on a fake. And I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes a huge problem, and that's something Reggie's going to have to be Reggie about and just teach him how this flange is. I assume Reggie would be more in touch with how to flange this properly, at least. But when it comes to how will Reggie fix the issues with GameStop, it's fixing this kind of stuff where how they go about doing things just doesn't make sense, and other entities know how to do it better. And like, yeah, it's like I kind of struggle with it because some of the stuff Reggie's going to fix and how he's going to fix it is just, excuse me, seems so just simple and obvious. So let's get away from that. Simple and obvious to people like us, where we're like, we experience the problems and we're like, well, at least the general direction of how to fix it seems obvious to us. And of course we don't have the business perspective and all that, but sometimes I wonder if the business perspective has gotten a little bit ivory tower and disconnected, and could actually use some more input from people at our level, the consumer level, where it's like, how about they ask us what we want and what we prefer and what we like, because they're not exactly doing a lot of that as far as I can tell. It feels like they've got we know better, so we're going to flange it up. And then GameStop just goes to crap, and then they're like, oh, but retro games and whatchamajigger, what's the other one they're going to do? Oh, like e-tournament kind of almost console cafe-ish type deal, which is what they're talking about by a different approach. So we're just going to play some videos while oh, sorry about the volume. Play some funny videos while I finish rambling on. So anyways, this one's from Nintendo. Just make sure to give it the credit. Hopefully they don't copyright me, even though this should count as fair use. But yeah, so when it comes to how Reggie is going to fix all this up, and then also how he's going to assist with implementing the new things like the retro gaming aspects and the kind of more esports and have things to do in store aspects, he might even put a stop to some of it and be like, no, this is a bad idea. You guys need to fix your core. And that's the thing. At least I would hope how Reggie is going to help GameStop fix itself is he's going to be like, guys, you got some core problems with how you're doing things at a fundamental level. All this upselling stuff, I mean, it's kind of hard not to get a company like that to upsell at all. It's too much, though. They need to just take a step back and be like, okay, maybe upsell just one thing at a time, maybe two, not like a 5-minute speech with like 8 things to upsell. So, and also maybe back off with the like getting people to pre-order, because it makes us want to pre-order elsewheres when they're so pushy about it. And those kind of core things where it's like, let's focus on a healthy customer experience that makes people feel good about shopping there, that makes people want to come back. Like VGT is just a great example, because whenever I go there, like, I feel like I want to come back, and the only thing that keeps me from going back there more often is just travel, medical issue kind of stuff. It just happens to be kind of a long ways away from me, just where I'm situated. All 3 locations happen to be kind of far from where I'm situated. It's just, yeah, anyways. Anyways, the point is, like, the difference between the local video game shop that has me wanting to come back there and support them, not just because I'm friends with the dude who runs it. If I weren't friends with the dude, I'd still want to go there and support him just because it's a good shop. The employees are fun to talk to. It's fun to go there. They've got cool stuff there just to look at. And, they got cool stuff there just to check out. That's interesting. And they have interesting people there to talk to that can talk openly. And that's the thing. They also can't. Oh, this is great. See, that's okay. I take it all back. That's how Reggie's fixing it. That's exactly how Reggie's fixing it. He's just going to laser down the GameStop crappy board members and be like, "Fuck you! I got laser eyes." Anyways, jokes aside, he's not going to Cyclops laser eyes the GameStop board, obviously. Although that would be hilarious. But no, that's how he's going to fix it. GameStop laser eyes. Oh shit. Reggie ain't taking shit. Not even a glass of water. I'm just talking shit anyways. But yeah, he's being like piloted. Oh, I've got the same thing. I got. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I didn't notice. He's got the Zelda special edition guide box chest thing on his desk. See, that's why Reggie's awesome. Like, he just has that on his desk. Why does he have that on his desk? Is it there just for the video? I doubt it. Oh shit, Reggie found his laser eye clone being piloted. Anyway, so we're supposed to be talking about how Reggie's rescuing GameStop, not his laser eye silly video. Although, shit, we're way off topic, aren't we? Anyways, back on topic. Reggie is, yeah, he might have a bit of an uphill battle to face with changing things and trying to fix things, because some of these entrenched things where they're like, oh, upselling, we got to get numbers, all this stuff that like actually is backfiring them, and directly the problem is, yeah, sorry, I'm kind of, oh, sorry, having a gastro moment there. I didn't want to like burp loudly on camera. Anyway, so that aside, like, you know, it's going to be difficult for Reggie to go in there single-handedly be like, this is what we need to change. No more upselling. No more of this. No more of that. Do this, do that. Like, you know, it's not going to be anything overnight or quick. But with so many with so many of the previous board members gone, it might really help open things up to that, and that might have been partly why. Oh, excuse me. Partly why. Partly. Oh my fuck. Oh, it's been forever since I watched that. I forgot how hilarious that is. Mad props to the people behind that video. I really hope it doesn't get me copyright flagged or anything though. And yeah, figure might as well throw in his goodbye message, and also I should wrap it up time-wise pretty soon. But anyways, getting super distracted from the actual topic. He's got so much cool shit in his background. Anyways, yeah, so back to my train of thought. Yes, so with the board members that have left, I think it'll make it easier for him to do the kind of things he needs to do, but I think he might be the only one with an actual video game specific presence or amount of experience to really know what we need, what we want, what works, what doesn't work, like all these other people seem to not be able to do. And I mean, Reggie's track record speaks for itself. I mean, but just like take that silly video we just watched where he's got like all laser eyes and all that. Like he knows what's up. And that's why I think he's going to be good. And I think to super condense it and just not have any nuance at all, I think it's his being in touch that is going to really be the core essence of how he's going to turn GameStop around. Because he actually is in touch with us. And I think that's sort of a bigger meta issue I wanted to touch on at the end here is I think overall this is an endemic problem all throughout business, especially in video games, where companies are just so out of touch with their consumers and consumer base and fans and people that want to support them. They're just so ridiculously out of touch. And Reggie seems to be a very rare instance of being in touch and knowing what's up and knowing what to flange and how to flange it. And yeah, it's something, this bigger picture meta thing has been something I've been observing and trying to figure out, and I want to do content on just the whole big picture aspect of just game companies being out of touch with their audiences and consumers. And I think that's the real key of how he's going to help GameStop turn around is being like, yo guys, do you realize what the effect of your actions? And he's going to be like, here, don't you realize, like, if you do it this way, people are not going to like it because that turns them off because they don't like that stuff. And yeah, you kind of got to do it, but you can do it better, less aggressively, and not do these things where if, employees are so freaked out about getting their numbers because there's so much pressure to get these numbers and upsell these things that it just, instead of being able to have the freedom and capacity to figure out what that good customer experience is store by store, because each store needs to calibrate to its specific area too. So that's the thing, this whole kind of idea of our approach works for all stores doesn't work. They need to give each store the freedom to figure its own thing out, at least to some degree, to calibrate for its specific local audience. Because some, like, the thing with culture is it can get very localized, and you can have a very localized subculture even to a neighborhood or area of a city. And you can just have a city where there's certain demographics or areas or cultures or subcultures, whatever you want to call it, where it's just there's differences within locations within a city that are significant enough that you got to slightly modify how you run a retail location so the local people of that area are more inclined to go there. And I feel like this all leads to this thing where basically, because of the whole upselling, we got to get our numbers thing, it's kind of poisoning the well so that employees can't have the capacity to flange up that customer experience that keeps people coming back, because they're putting all their time, effort, and energy and everything into these numbers and upselling and this and that. So they're really shooting themselves in the foot, while probably thinking, okay, we got to get our numbers up, let's push more sales, we got to get more pre-sales, we got to get more of this, more of that. And it's this kind of like what's the word, I want to say, yeah, this kind of like self-defeating downward spiral cycle where it's like, it's that kind of thing where they kind of grab, the tighter they grab on, the more it slips through their fingers. And like, I think at the core, and I really hope this is how Reggie's going to help GameStop get its shit together, is just to loosen up just in general. Be like, don't get so stressed about the numbers, don't stress employees about the numbers, focus on a customer experience that gets people wanting to come back. Don't even worry about like doing retro games or all this extra stuff. Stick with what you got and get good at that and give customers a good customer experience first, and then worry about adding retro games, then worry about doing esports tournament stuff. Because all that esports tournament stuff and retro games, that ain't going to matter for crap, but people still won't show up because they're uncomfortable with being upsold for 5 minutes when they try and buy something. So at least I hope, I mean, this is of course speculative mostly in many ways, I would hope very much so this is also what Reggie's thinking, because it seems obvious to like anyone who's been keeping track of the GameStop stuff what the problem is and what needs to be fixed. And it seems at the core, customers are getting turned away and turned off of GameStop because they just don't like it. They don't feel comfortable. They don't, they don't feel like they do about local shops like VGT, where I can just go there and kind of hang out and browse the store and chat with the employees. And if I overstayed my welcome, I that would be another thing. But you can like go there for a half an hour, maybe even an hour, and just be like kind of chill and browse around and pick up a couple things and chat with the customer, or yeah, well, chat with customers too. And you just don't really get that at GameStop. Like I don't feel like, and again, nothing against the people at my local EB Games. Is I don't want to accidentally shit on them or anything, because they're doing their best and they seem like good people and all that. But I just don't feel comfortable doing that at my local EB Games, and it seems like it's even worse at a USA GameStop, where they seem even more like very aggressive about the upsales. Like because the stories I hear about GameStop in USA, like we do definitely get some of that in Canada, but I've not encountered that level of aggressive upselling and kind of trying to force pre-orders. Like I just don't. I really haven't experienced that at multiple locations with EB Games. Like they do upsell, and it's a little bit like okay, especially when I go to the same place all the time. I'm like, you guys know I'm just gonna say no. Can you just not bother? But also, I understand they have to, because if they get caught not doing it, they'll get in trouble, which is the problem. And that's the problem I hope Reggie solves is, this whole thing with forcing upselling, because, employees getting in trouble if they don't upsell customers for 5 minutes. All that kind of crap needs to stop. And that's the core of the issue. And I think that's how Reggie's going to start to change and fix GameStop. I would hope, at least, because that seems like the most logical, best way to do it. But anyways, I feel like I've rambled on for long enough, even this being an extra flange and all that. As always, thanks for watching and supporting and subscribing and hitting the notifications icon and all that good stuff. Also, thanks for giving me a thumbs up if you liked it, and also thank you for giving me a thumbs down if you don't. But if you do give me a thumbs down if you didn't like this content, please let me know in the comments how I can improve and turn that thumbs down around into a thumbs up for next time. And as always, make sure to support Intoxicus Gaming if you like our content. We got the Patreon, GoFundMe, and PayPal links all down there, depending on what you want to donate to. As I've said previously, the GoFundMe is very specifically for the channel when it comes to like equipment costs and upgrading things and that kind of stuff. The Patreon's more just a general help myself and Midnight and Shy Guy eat food and pay bills and all that good stuff. And the PayPal is really just for people who just have an issue with either GoFundMe or Patreon or anything like that and just want another option. And for the PayPal link too, also it's up to you to specify if you want the donation channel specific or anything like that, or for a very specific thing, or if you do make a note, I want this donation to go to, equipment costs, then it will go to equipment costs. I just want to make that clear. And that all aside, yes, streaming tonight, doing Doom 2016. Doing Doom 2016 tonight. And I already mentioned at the beginning, but yeah, it won't be any daily flanges. Will be quick flanges and extra flanges until I rethink how I want to do the format and all that. So just if you're like, oh, where's the daily flanges? Don't worry about that. Just keep an eye out for the extra and quick flanges as they flange up. And trying to think if there's anything else. Nope, that's everything, I believe. So as always, have a good one, and remember to bring a towel. Hopefully I'll get this outro right. Bye.